Good morning, Sean. How are you on this post Doctor Who day?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a long time since I've had two new episodes of Doctor Who to discuss.
I know, honestly. Part of me is really glad we had two episodes at once. The work side of me is going, "Oh my God, there's so much to do."
It's like, do you know what? Because I was thinking the same. It's like it's our small price to pay for getting fun new Doctor Who.
Yeah. And we go all these months and months, almost years without any Doctor Who, and then we get two episodes in one go and everyone's panic.
Pretty much.
But we have posted videos with my ups and downs, but we have yet to hear your thoughts on the episode. So just give me a general overview of your thoughts on Space Babies and the Devil's Chord.
Well, for Space Babies, I confess myself befuddled because I don't remember filming it.
Oh my goodness, we've fully confused quite a few people on YouTube. Just to be clear, that is not actually you, right?
It is not me, unless, as I say, unless, I don't, maybe we'd gone out on a Friday night, myself and Russ, and he says, do you know what would be funny? Come here, throw this green suit on you. Um, it was his, but I have to say, like, the picture I was looking at, being like, is that me?
I'm glad it wasn't just me though, because I watched it and sent a message to you and Danny and was like, I just had to rewind this. Sean, what are you doing on there? And then about a couple of hours later, we started getting tweets coming through, and I was like, it wasn't just me.
I'm just like, yeah, am I getting residuals for this? No, I'm kidding. No one gets residuals anymore. Um,
Mm.
So sorry, right? Okay. Other than my befuddlement, I really enjoyed them. So I watched them. I got to see them Saturday morning. So I was very good and got up, set the alarm, made my coffee, sat in. All the devices were away, which of course now is going to be a theme going forward because everyone's going to be at different times watching these. Um, and I just caught myself just smiling throughout Space Babies. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's bonkers. And there's a large degree of uncanny valley going on. But I mean, it was fun. I mean, I have to say, I caught the bogeyman thing early, clues in the name. But it was just one of those kind of nice, light Doctor Who episodes. Like yes, okay, there's peril. It's a Russell T Davies episode, but no, it was light. And then by the time the space station farts itself toward the new planet at the end, I was like, Russell T is well, he's been back for a while now, but Russell T is back.
And of
This
course, you definitely will have noticed all those lovely Star Trek references.
did I
Not only
what?
references, confirmation pretty much that the Star Trek universe and the Whoniverse exist as one in the same.
That's the fun thing. I love that, and that's something that I think Doctor Who can get away with. It's like the TV shows remain TV shows, but also, do you know what? Actually, they are floating around out there. You know.
And especially now with this new era of Doctor Who where, fantasy has become reality. Who's to
Mhm.
say that the toy maker didn't suddenly make Star Trek real?
I know, right? I mean, it seems like something Neil Patrick Harris would do. Never mind the toy matcher. The toy matcher, the toy maker, yeah. One of them two. It seems like something they would do. My top line thought, Space Babies, because obviously we'll talk about it in a bit more detail, but my top line thought is really enjoyed it. It's not going to be remembered as the greatest episode of Doctor Who ever made, nor is it anywhere near, any of the stinkers,
Mhm.
despite the space station farting.
And what about the Devil's Chord? Give us your overview.
That one I loved the Devil's Chord. I've been a Jinkx Monsoon fan for quite some time, so seeing them cross over into the Doctor Who universe was a lot of fun. Um, and really clever way of getting around. No one's allowed to use the Beatles music. Um, so well played. And I loved the ending. I will also say, so there's a few movies that openly said they finished with a big number because they hadn't a clue how to end the film. And I'm not saying I didn't get that feeling from The Devil's Chord, but I thought, what a fun way to go out. I know we've talking points around that as well. But of the two so far, I did prefer The Devil's Chord. But then there's more in it to digest.
hmm Okay, so well, let's go into more specifics. So we'll focus first on space babies, and then we'll move on to the Devil's Chord in a second. So we have a couple of talking points. First of all, this is kind of the second time now that we've seen Ncuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson. I personally am loving Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor.
Oh.
I think he's such brilliant casting, and this episode really highlights that. Millie, or Ruby, I'm a little bit kind of waiting for her moment to come at the moment.
I hear what you mean.
I feel a little bit like, I don't want to be too harsh, but I think the first episode where a companion has to kind of ask all the obvious questions and act shocked and surprised by everything can become a little bit, they can be quite samey, quite repetitive. And I think it's probably quite difficult to make that kind of scene your own without kind of bordering on it being a little bit too corny. But sure. I think that's the nature of those kinds of scenes, because I was kind of thinking, oh, it's the same. Oh, we've moved. How have we moved? Who are you? Where are you from? And I was kind of like, oh, but then I think I have to remind myself that has to happen with every single companion.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You're right. And it's kind of the challenge these days is how do you get through that and keep it interesting, but also not, kind of have people checking the clock. I think they did good by doing things like throwing in the butterfly whoops and also, kind of like as well, like we're gonna show off the budget. Let's do Jurassic Park, So that was cool. I enjoyed that now. And I know we talked about it before, the fact she was in full makeup to be, Ruby of the hexagonal hatchling. Yeah, I don't remember the exact description.
Doodah. Yeah.
Doodah. Yeah. Yeah.
But obviously, we've just been saying about obviously the standard companion needing to find out all the information. And there's been a lot of talk about the exposition in this episode and whether it was too obvious, too heavy, or whether it was actually okay. I mean, I feel like there were a lot of moments that felt very much like they were for the benefit of the new viewers. And while obviously we do need to have those in there, it felt a little bit too like we were watching like our recap video rather than, I feel like it could have been embedded slightly better in parts.
So this is where I disagree. I actually quite liked it because I like it's up front and then it's done. And then like the more specific bits that kind of bleed into, for example, the Devil's Chord. Now we'll talk about the exposition in the Devil's Chord when we get to it, but I quite like that it was like boom, 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 here we go.
So there was one part that myself and Danny were kind of discussing. It may be because it just felt like there was a bit of repetition. So, for example, there's the whole explaining that he's adopted to Ruby at the beginning. But then later on in the episode, you basically have the same conversation happen when the Doctor's talking to Captain Poppy. And it kind of feels like you could have just had the scene with Captain Poppy and Ruby overhearing that. And you've still got the information, but it's kind of like we were told twice. And you probably only needed it to be said once. Or combine those two explanations into one scene.
For exposition reasons, I hear you. I do that. Maybe just do it the once. For character reasons, I wouldn't have had Ruby over here. I like that he told Ruby. Because we've had things like that before where, a companion has overheard something about the Doctor. The Doctor hasn't expressly told them, and it makes the balance off a little bit. I think Martha is the first one that's jumping to mind for that one. That Martha effectively had to say, I'm not leaving until you tell me about you. And I think that if it had just been Ruby overhearing the Doctor's conversation with this random space baby, he'll tell the random space baby about himself, but he won't tell the companion. But I do hear you about the scene playing twice.
See, just from us having this discussion here, I can already just imagine the difficulties that they must have had in the writer's room when trying to figure out how to approach this new season whilst trying to include new viewers and existing viewers, because it must have been very, very difficult. And as I've said, it's been massively divisive. Even the two of us have kind of differing views on how this was achieved. I think maybe upon rewatch, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, some of it needs to be said. I think maybe some of the things that were explained were a little bit like, are you giving us a background on the character or are you trying to give us a background of the show itself? That's where I was a little bit like, the things that are relevant to the character and the companion needs to know about the character, totally yes. There's a natural conversation happening between just introducing ourselves to each other. And then there were some things that felt a little bit like, I feel like you've just said that more for the benefit of the viewer with regards to Doctor Who itself, as opposed to, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, and all of them have gone out. But there were moments where I was like, that felt more like that was for the benefit of the viewers of Doctor Who itself, as opposed to for Ruby to know about the Doctor.
Definitely. I think that first bit, as much as I do like the first exposition scene, that feels like, right, how can we take all of the 13th Doctor story and condense it?
Yeah.
I was adopted. Cool. Okay, so now we're gonna, and then really, really quickly, okay, we're gonna do a couple of name drops. We've got the Doctor, the Rani, the Bishop, the Conquistador. Great, cool, right, lovely. So there's other Time Lords. We're
Yeah.
doing really well here. You know what I mean? And I do feel like that, yeah, there is a bit of that's for the viewer. And also, I think it's a way of focusing because we all, I know it's been addressed in interviews, particularly Russell T has been asked directly, Timeless Child, you've chosen to keep going with it, you know, and we've spoken about this already. I think it's a way of kind of focusing it as well because, you know, when you have a question as massive as what the hell is the Timeless Child? What's the bit to remember? Doctor was adopted. It's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Pretty
all right,
much.
grand. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, so I didn't find it too egregious. Um and
Okay, but
uh,
what about, let's see if we agree on this. The space babies and specifically the CGI mouth situation. Yay or nay?
so I do hope that the actor who performed the role of Eric will forgive me when I say I didn't believe your eyes, Eric. When you said I love you,
No.
Ruby, you clearly were
This is where I
incredibly.
found issue. I did watch the episode of Unleashed, and there was a bit of explanation as to how they did it. And they kind of used child actors to do obviously the voiceovers to
Mm.
record the voices, and they captured their facial movements and they kind of pasted the child actors' facial movements onto the baby in post-production. And so a lot of some of the facial movements were actually of the child actor as opposed to the baby. And I feel like it's one of those things where there was a lot of time and effort and work that went into it, and I feel like they would have been better off just having the baby speaking through some sort of um technical speaker, or just don't move the babies' mouths. These babies are clever enough. They definitely could have been like talking through their chairs or something.
I think this is going to be one of these ones where it's just like, okay, cool. So talking babies, right?
Yeah. I
Grand.
I do
I
agree
will
though. It's
accept
kind
it.
of like
Yeah.
I mean I said this in the ups and downs. I fully understand that you cannot direct a baby. I'm not trying to be like, oh well, they didn't direct the babies very well. Obviously, it's a baby. But there were moments where the babies were like supposed to be crying and they actually weren't. You could hear them crying, but if you actually looked at them, they were just sitting there. And
And
it
there was,
just
I was like, poor Eric looked terrified for the entire episode.
yeah,
Um,
it was very strange to me. It
I think as
did
well, like,
it pulled me out of this story a couple of times because it was quite distracting actually.
I think as well, kind of parroting what you said there. Just so everyone watches, we're not criticizing the performance of babies. They're freaking
No.
babies. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's one of those things like never work with animals, never work with kids. So when I was there in my green suit, I do remember it being very difficult. Um, yeah, and then it's kind of this. Yeah, again, this is what I want to say. It's very Russell T. Is that for any moment of peril? I mean, how could you take it seriously? Bunch of prams going around. The one thing that we were funny of because this we were chatting on the Trek culture chat about this because obviously we were discussing the Trek and Doctor Who references. And I was chatting away to Jack, and he was just like, "They gave the babies a flamethrower. Babies had a flamethrower. That is what I think that was the moment where he was like." Not only have I been pulled out of this episode, I don't see myself being pulled back into it by the end of the episode. I was like, I understand that. I mean, Captain Poppy, obviously a hero, flamethrower. Um, and yet they're
Welcome to the absurdity of Doctor Who.
and there it is. There it is. So, I mean, was it Uncanny Valley? Yes, it was. You know, was it a bit hard to swallow? A little bit. But then I think I guess I'm just like because of the Doctor Who of it all.
Hmm.
You know, I kind of like, I know, I'm just like, listen, we had farting Slovene. We now have farting space stations.
Hmm.
We
One thing
have.
I was trying to figure out whether I thought was working better now is obviously a lot of the criticism that we had for Chibnall's episodes in particular was the way in which kind of social political commentary wasn't embedded enough. And so
Yeah.
it was too on the nose, too much like a lecture or a telling off, as opposed to kind of a hidden message within a Doctor Who story. And we know that Russell T Davies had done this plenty of times in his first era. So obviously this episode definitely had those commentaries in there. They weren't missing. We had the commentary on, the laws of abortion, and refugees and things like that. I personally think that we're on the right track for them being embedded back into a story and not being the kind of really obvious driving force of a story.
Mm.
There were a few moments where I felt like they were still making it a little bit too obvious, as opposed to being the kind of hidden message of the episode. But I definitely think that we are heading in the right direction with regards to the balance of these messages.
Do you know what I think? It's better than the giggle. The giggle, I was just like, that's a fairly tall soapbox now you're standing on. The
Mm.
human race doesn't need any help to be violent, and you're always like, all right, Doctor, hang on, chill out. Is this really the time? And I do
Yeah.
think that was heavy-handed. Whereas this one, I thought it was a bit more. Well, the refugee, not subtle at all.
No,
Uh,
this is what I mean. The actual
yeah.
the abortion commentary, I think, was more subtle. I mean, I
Yes.
got it, but this is the thing. If you make it about an alien race and an alien situation, and you don't kind of literally name and shame actual places and people that within like what is real, then it's much, much simpler. But yeah, I think the refugee part was maybe slightly more, well, it wasn't slightly, it was
Yeah.
massively more obvious.
Yeah. I mean, like you could nearly hear the plane to Rwanda as they were talking about, well, it's where you have to turn up on their shores.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I liked it. I thought
Yeah.
it was doing it, but I suppose then now. So I just did a rewatch there of Years and Years recently. So I'm just thinking, I mean, when Russell T wants to make a point,
But this is the thing, though. Years and
yeah,
Years was designed to be a whole thing commenting on those situations, whereas Doctor Who is not. And that's where the
mm,
balance. Well, I mean,
don't entirely agree, but I know what you mean. Doctor Who is set up to be a sort of this, depending
it's
on the showrunner,
fiction and
family
entertainment,
sci-fi. Yeah.
families, yeah. And so those messages are in there. Obviously, messages are in everything,
Hmm.
but it's how you choose to embed them in the story.
It is,
And you don't want to feel like you're being lectured at.
and that was, I think, where we strike. See, I've been very careful about it. I haven't really done much criticism of Mr. Chibnall. Orphan 55. I mean, it's a bit like, what was the point of this episode other than to say you're all bad, bad?
Oh, God.
Whereas at least in this, I think I'm massively generalizing, so I hope people forgive me if I go too much, but I think that's the difference. An episode like Orphan 55 was holding the screen, staring people in the eyes and going, "You're bad." Whereas episodes like this is like, yeah, the way refugees are treated are bad,
Yeah, this is a
but it's
situation in
not
the world
like.
that is bad, and you should be aware of it.
And then, I mean, Ruby's comment. I thought Ruby's comment was very cleverly done. So like, what? So they were make sure the babies are born. They just don't take care of them. It's like, yeah, it's so. I'm paraphrasing it. So unbelievable. It's not that
No,
unbelievable.
not yeah.
I was like, and that's it. And they
That's all you
don't
need.
kind of linger on it after that. They're like, yeah, we all know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I thought that was very well done. Um,
Let's move
so
on to the other mystery. We don't want to dwell on this for too long. We've got 2 episodes to discuss.
it's very true.
Susan Twist.
So this is right. So Susan. So I feel like I'm going to talk more about Susan in the Devil's Chord,
Mhm.
but just really, really, there she is again. So we're now. Are we? No, we're not. We're not 4 episodes in a row because I don't think she was in the Giggle. So she
No,
was in Wild Blue Yonder.
she was in 3. She's been in,
Yeah,
well, 4 now, but
yeah. Wild Blue, Ruby Road, Space Baby. It is very. I don't like, serious talk, serious talk. The episode's literally called Space Babies.
I will say I did miss Susan Twist the first time because I was so busy writing notes about the fact that their uniforms look like
Sure.
Star Trek uniforms that I completely missed that it was Susan Twist. And then Danny said to me afterwards, "Did you spot Susan Twist?" I was like, "Where? There was only babies and a bogeyman in this episode. Where the hell was Susan Twist?" But anyway, let's kind of jump to the end of the episode because we've got some things at the end of the episode that definitely need to be delved into a little bit.
Hmm.
So we've obviously got the TARDIS scanning Ruby at the end of the episode.
Did you get very Amy Pond start of season
Yes,
6? Yeah.
absolutely. Now, the information itself didn't actually reveal anything massively
Hmm.
new or shocking at this point, but I don't doubt that we will return to that scan at some point and it will reveal something. Somewhere in an episode that's going to go ding and something really shocking is going to be revealed. For the life of me, I do not know what it's going to be. I'm very much still at a complete loss as to what the hell is going on with Ruby.
Yeah, I've no idea, and this is one of the fun things as well, I think, about Devil's Chord. I mean, we said this already, didn't we? That we're getting Impossible Girl vibes from what they're doing with Ruby. I'm all. I think that the Ruby Doctor dynamic works for me. I realize we're in a couple of episodes in a little bit better than the Doctor Clara dynamic did.
And we all
And
know
then
that I'm not a big Clara fan, so I can agree with that.
I did and do love her. I get the critique. I do. And I particularly the impossible thing didn't work. Um, like because it was too kind of rushed to the ending. I suppose I hope they don't rush the ending of Ruby. I just feel like there's more of an engaging mystery here, but it's also not the. And we're just going to pause the episode so that I can pick up my wrench and beat you over the head because she's the impossible girl, you know. Um, so, but I'm enjoying where she because she's obviously. I mean, like for example, the scene in the hallway where she basically brings her memory to life.
That was probably my favorite scene in the whole
That
episode.
was good.
I
That was
and the snow, I'm so intrigued. I'm actually liking, I mean, we've spent the last however many months, 6 months, speculating and theorizing about what's going to happen. And I kind of like that. I have no idea what's going on.
no. Haven't
And I
haven't
kind
haven't
of
noticed.
like it.
Yeah, I'm loving the mystery. I mean, at the end of Space Babies, I'd love to know what the construction budget is for Carla and Sherry's apartment.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point that you just mentioned Carla there, because something else that I questioned was who was
Mm.
she talking to on the phone?
See,
She could
this
have
is
just been talking to her friend, right? But I feel like in Doctor Who, that's not. I feel like it's going to come back and it's going to be like, I mean, we just mentioned Clara when she was talking to the woman in the shop and it turned out to be Missy. I feel like maybe there's Carla is talking to someone who's going to end up being very relevant later on.
like this is the thing about being a Who fan. Is anything just anything?
Exactly.
Like, and like I know, I'm sure. In fact, there is scenes from I'm thinking back to Jackie Tyler where Jackie's on the phone, and it was just Jackie was on the phone, and that was very Russell T. Whereas Clara talking to the woman in the shop was very Stephen Moffat. I'm just like, oh, does that mean then that I discount the fact that there's a phone? It's like no, because we live in the universe where the phone could be anywhere. It's bonkers. I love it.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
Wow.
You can't
I
just
mean,
watch an episode.
the whole episode was quite bonkers. So what we'll finish talking about this episode on this point. I have a
Sure.
question for you. We've said that, it's not necessarily going to be the most remembered episode, but it's by far nowhere near some of the worst episodes. Do you think it was the right choice for the season opener?
Um,
Especially if you consider the fact that this is the episode that's going to be drawing in this whole new audience that Disney is hoping to
do you know what?
attract.
I'm gonna hang my hat in it. I'm gonna say yes. Uh,
Wow.
I'm gonna say yes because we get so I liked the bit of the exposition. So me personally, I did. We get big statements of who the Doctor is, how the Doctor acts. We get our you can't judge a book by its cover. That's very, very Doctor Who. We get our little bit of tragedy of poor Jocelyn, the pressure that she's been under for the last 6 years and her I say breakdown, but with Ruby. You get really good Ruby scenes. You get a silliness. It's a big snot monster. Why not? And then you also get some pretty spectacular visuals as well. And that stinger of the scan of the end, and you still have time to check in with Carla and Cherry. And I thought it's a very good mission statement for what it looks like this season of Doctor Who is going to be. I'm going to, so
Interesting.
my hat is hung on that. I think it was a good season opener. I think the Devil's Chord would have been too much for a season opener if we were just looking at these two episodes.
So, I mean, the thing is for me is all those things you've said, yes, I agree. But I feel like you're looking at it from a Doctor Who fan's perspective of these are the things that are our Doctor Who. But to me, if I was to look at this as a new viewer who's never seen Doctor Who before, I think I would struggle to get past the snot monster, and I would struggle to get past the hokiness of CGI baby mouths. I think it depends how you look at it. I think as a new viewer with no knowledge of what Doctor Who is, I wonder if people would have turned that on and gone, "What is this? What am I watching?" So, I mean, I feel like there's two ways of looking at it. I do wonder if maybe to try and attract a new audience, it maybe was a little bit too silly.
What makes me really smile is because you're not wrong. It's compare the CGI space babies to the wheelie bin that eats Mickey. And if you think about how first episodes have come along in the last.
But it's funny though, because I watched Partners in Crime last night and the adipose babies, right? And I said to my mum as we were watching it, I still am more connected and believe these adipose fat babies than I do the CGI baby mouths. It fully took me out of it, even though, by today's standards, the CGI of the adipose is not so great. I still preferred them.
Because they're consistent, maybe? Like you're always looking at a little
maybe.
CGI adipose.
I'm not sure. The other thing that is worth noting as well is the way that Disney in particular and the BBC have been kind of promoting this and how they've released the episodes is they've put the Church on Ruby Road as like the real episode 1. So when you consider it like that, then this episode is technically episode 2. And in that regard, I think it works better. I think you're right that maybe, I mean, personally, I was thinking, I would have switched the Devil's Chord and Space Babies, but I get what you're saying. It might have been a little bit too much. But I think if you consider the Church on Ruby Road as episode 1, then as an episode 2, that definitely works. And also, originally their plan was to air these episodes in January. So if there hadn't been this big gap and we'd gone straight from the Church on Ruby Road to Space Babies and this was like an episode 2, I think that actually would have probably been better than the fact that we had these kind of 5 months to wait.
Yeah, I think like Ruby Road is a much, I guess, I know it wasn't Russell's first episode, but David Tennant's first episode, The Christmas Invasion. I think that worked. Yeah, I think Ruby Road works better as a pilot or a repilot, whatever you want to call it. We're in this weird bit where, like, well, what's the first? Is the first episode the Star Beast, or is the first episode the Church on Ruby Road, or is the first episode,
or is it the Giggle,
or is it the Giggle? Exactly. Speaking of the
wow. Yes, let's move on to the Devil's Chord. Right off the bat, we're introduced to Maestro. Jinkx Monsoon's performance as Maestro, I think, was just the epitome of what a Doctor Who monster should be, a villain should be.
I mean, they were scary. Jinkx Monsoon plays this for the backseats. And loved the opening. I suppose because it happened so early in the episode, what did you think of the fourth wall breaking?
I think with regards to this episode and the fact that we knew that the fourth wall breaking had already kind of become a thing, it intrigued me more than anything else. I think they did it so many times that we cannot ignore that it definitely means more than just the odd little wink wink. There's definitely something going on here. I hope they don't overuse it, but I definitely am intrigued as to what it all means.
I think and the fact that it was, for the most part, apart from one moment, reserved for Maestro. So it's the gods have this power to break the fourth wall.
Yeah, and I
Um,
mean, these gods are supposed to kind of exist beyond the universe. It's almost like they're outside the realm of the rules of the universe, and so they're able to do it. And obviously, we've been introduced to this idea of the pantheon, um,
mhm.
and the toy maker and the connection to the toy maker.
So I
And
really liked that.
yes, I
Um,
did. When I heard the giggle, I was like, oh. And
that
in
was
fact, I heard my brother listening to the episode later on in the day, and he and his girlfriend were listening to it, and I could hear them, and it was at that moment. And they more just watch it and take it each episode as it comes. They don't sit there and analyze it like we do. And I heard them go, "That's the thing from the other episode," and I was like, "Yes, they got it!" I was so proud.
there's so much in this episode. Sorry, the more I think about it, this is such a stacked episode. There's so much going on, and the fact that it's all set in 1963.
Yes. So I really liked the whole concept of what it meant, about like kind of the joy of music being taken away. And
Hmm.
that music itself isn't gone, but the emotional connection to music is gone. And I really loved that whole concept was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. Um, and yes, as you said, it's 1963, so we did have another scene of kind of explaining certain histories of the character. I will say that scene didn't bother me as much as the first episode did. I think that one was a little bit more like, well, we're in 63. Obviously, it started to lay this groundwork of discussing Susan, who we
Mm.
definitely have theories about.
Hmm. Hmm. I like it as well because I mean it does it happens. Something that we talk about, it happens all the time. The Doctor crosses their own time stream all the time. They've been everywhere, you know. Um, and so I like just how, oh, I'm over there. He is with Ruby, to kind of help Ruby understand wibbly wobbly, but also, I mean, the audience, oh, you're in what year? Are we going to address? Oh, we did address it. Brilliant. Love it. We've addressed it straight away. Um, and my own inner critic going like, well, did that doctor not pick up on the fact that there was stuff going on? And did that doctor
The
not
more you
think,
question these things, the more complicated it becomes.
I was just like, that doctor was living in the universe that Maestro had created,
Yeah,
whereas our doctor had just popped into it.
yeah, yeah. Now you've just
Does
hurt my
that mean then
brain.
that Susan didn't have her weird alien dance to the radio, where that's how we were introduced to Susan in Unearthly Child?
Mm.
Um, but then if there was no music, then Ian and Barbara would never have thought, what a weird little kid you are. Let's follow you back to a junkyard. Oh my God, nothing would have ever happened.
Oh
Uh,
my goodness.
yeah.
That got too
Um,
deep.
yeah, but I love how, and the so Grumpy Sean thinks the interior of the TARDIS is cavernous for two people. Sean, who enjoys a joke, loves the fact that it turned it into a runway. When they go
Yeah,
and they do their costume change and they
yeah.
walk out. That was brilliant. I really enjoyed that.
Actually, now you've mentioned the TARDIS, this is something else that my mum and myself noticed. The way that the noises the TARDIS makes and the way the TARDIS kind of flies seems to
Mm.
have changed. We don't
I
have
think
these extended bits of the TARDIS making the TARDIS noise and the thing in the middle moving up and down. It's like instantly we're there, and I'm not sure I like it.
I know what you mean. Well, it's because he's taking the parking brakes off.
Yeah, but don't because we need the noise.
Yeah. But then it goes. I hear you. I do. Um, I think I noticed it more when they jump forward to now 2024. And it was like, okay, we're here. We are. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's something that I've noticed that the entire time they've been in there, it's just the flight of the TARDIS seems to be very short and instant, more than it ever used to be.
hmm.
Whether that is something that is going to mean something later on, or whether it's just something they've changed in the show, I have. And like we said, with Doctor Who, something could just be something, or it could mean something. Who knows?
Yeah, we could spend, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we could spend time. We're going to super analyze this. And then, they were seen into you later on. Russell T going like, oh, it saves time.
hmm
Okay, right, scrap the notes.
Something that definitely does mean something, though, is after Maestro messes with the TARDIS, And they go back to 1963 and they leave the TARDIS and it starts making some very unhealthy noises, like something's going on. And even the doctor, like Ruby's like, did you break it? And he's like, no, that's something else. What's going on? What is happening?
I don't know. And I mean, as Russell said, there's going to be more gods. So, is this like, well, you'll either see Maestro again come through via the TARDIS, which is like this magic box that can do anything in a world of fantasy, or what is it a bit like, right, well, I've infected you with a tiny bit of.
I've just had a thought.
Don't do that. You'll hurt your head.
Theories just come into my head right then. Now, I don't actually know the answer to this, but obviously we're getting all of these kind of gods coming through that would have otherwise not existed before the whole toy maker situation. I'm wondering if there's like a myth of a god for Time Lords who is now suddenly able to come through. So the TARDIS is like detecting some sort of Time Lord god.
Think about how we got the Time Lords back the last time Russell T was in charge. It was all to do with, kind of, well, one person and the white star or the white point star, and then they would come in through from other universes and everything. It's sure.
So let's talk about Ruby again for a second. So we just mentioned for Space Babies, kind of waiting for her moment. And I still feel like even in this episode, I'm still waiting for Ruby's moment. At the moment, I kind of feel like she's got all this mystery surrounding her that's really enticing, and you want to know who she is and where she's from. But as a character herself, I don't feel like she's blown me away yet. I still am waiting for that moment. There's lots surrounding her that's exciting and intriguing, but as a character, I'm still waiting for that moment where I'm like, yes, you have really proven yourself as. At the moment, I'm kind of like, yeah, she's another companion at the moment. I want to know who she is, but
yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out more about the mystery of Ruby, but I agree. So because sort of for the most part, stuff has kind of happened to her instead of she has done stuff.
I mean, as I said, I watched Partners in Crime again last night, and we'd already been introduced to Donna, but Donna instantly is a force of her own from the moment you meet her, and I don't feel like Ruby really has kind of shown me that yet. I know all the companions are different, but I just feel like even Rose, from the very beginning, had this real strong personality, and she kind of didn't take any nonsense. And whereas, at the moment, Ruby, I just feel like she's kind of that typical companion that kind of follows the Doctor around and panics when certain things happen. And I'm just waiting for that moment to happen.
I wonder if, but I mean, like next week, it looks almost like it's a two-hander, the two of them standing on landmines. So I wonder if we're going to get that next week. Because I think there's you're right, absolutely right about Donna. I'm trying to think of like the moments. I think some of Martha's moments came later in the season. So I'm looking forward to it, but at least I like her enough that I am happy to wait. I really like, at least even when I love the complete riff on Devil Went Down to Georgia as well. The music battle, enjoyed that. And of course,
I was just gonna say
that, got the chord and everything.
So the final musical number, you said that you really enjoyed that.
So this is my other fourth wall break if the Doctor turns and winks at the camera. And it's like, well, what does it mean? The Doctor basically is a god, this oncoming storm.
Yeah. So, I mean, the musical number is one of those moments that you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. It's your Marmite moment in a show. And there are people who don't enjoy musicals. There are people who absolutely love them. I think before this episode aired, there was a lot of speculation that the whole episode was going to be a musical episode, like Star Trek did with Subspace Rhapsody or Once More with Feeling, where it was going to be continuously singing and dancing the whole way through. So I think the fact that they didn't do that and then just had this dance number and singing song dance number at the end was good in as much as it didn't then alienate half the audience right from the beginning by going, hey, this is a musical number episode, you're not going to like it. But they kind of saved it for the end. Yeah. I liked that it kind of really hammered home the message of the episode, which is look at the difference between the emotion now that music has returned and just showing the power of music in terms of the joy and excitement and the community that it creates. I do think maybe it just went on slightly too long. I kind of got the point, and then I
I
was like,
I would agree with you there.
yeah. I know I actually didn't pay that much attention to it at the time, but I know that one of our writers, Mark, who did the written ups and downs for the episode, very much did not enjoy the lyrics to the song. And when I did go back, I was like, yeah, lyrics weren't so strong.
It was quite. It was definitely felt like this was more about the showy spectacle. This isn't something I'll stick on Spotify.
Yeah. I do think as well, though, whether I know obviously I just said leaving it to the end was good because it didn't alienate the audience, but I do wonder if actually it would have been better if this particular thing had been used within the music battle. At least make it slightly more relevant to saving the day. Because you were saying, sometimes it feels like they're just tagged on at the end.
Mm, mm.
Maybe if it's still at the end of the episode, but if you just added it to the music battle part and kind of incorporated more people in fighting the monster, fighting the evil, it maybe would have sat well with more audience members or sat better with more audience members.
I don't know. And then I'd be like, would Maestro not feed off that though? If Maestro is the
Yeah.
essence of music, and the only reason they could celebrate was because they'd managed to banish Maestro, which I don't know for a fact.
No,
Um,
yeah, no, I get that. So the other thing that I've heard a lot of fans saying after seeing these new episodes is that it doesn't feel like Doctor Who. And I kind of, to a degree, felt that too and got it. But for ages, I couldn't work out what it was about these new episodes that to me don't feel like Doctor Who. But I think I have managed now to put my finger on what it is. I don't know whether this has kind of been heightened by the fact that I'm currently doing a rewatch of the kind of RTD1 at the same time. And so when you're watching them side by side, it's much more noticeable. But Doctor Who, all the way back from the 60s, is basically the show that invented that phrase of saying, of like hiding behind the sofa. It's always been that thing that scares you. You ask your grandparents who
mm.
watched it, you ask your parents, you ask yourself as a kid, or even yourself now, and everyone will go that, oh, yeah, Doctor Who was scary. I had to hide behind the sofa because of the Daleks or because of the gas mask zombies. And at the moment, I don't feel like it's ever breaching those areas of actually being scary. So I watched Voyage of the Damned
Mm.
last night as well. And if you compare Voyage of the Damned to The Church on Ruby Road, two Christmas specials, they could almost be two entirely different shows when you compare them. And it kind of feels like the intensity and the drama and the seriousness that we used to see practically in every episode is lacking now. And they're kind of, then it's like they're almost now too scared to kill anyone or to kind of show any real terror. It's more, I don't know. I mean, obviously the bogeyman is scary to some people, but when you watch these two episodes next to each other, it's like they're so different.
I mean, Maestro tears an old woman apart.
I mean, yeah, but it's still not that I want to see it, but I mean, right, Voyage of the Damned, literally watched it. By the end of the episode, most of the main
A
cast are
lot of people
dead.
are dead. A
Yeah,
lot of people die in Voyage of the Damned. That's true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like the intensity is not as strong now. Now I'm hoping, based on the trailers we've seen for Boom, that maybe next week's episode is where we're going to start seeing that come through.
Hmm.
But I think that is, in my mind, when people are saying it doesn't feel like Doctor Who anymore, I feel like where that's where they're coming from. That's what they mean. It's missing that intensity, and it's like they're almost too scared to scare people, which they never used to shy away from doing. It used to be scary.
That's it. That's interesting, Joe. I haven't picked up on that. That's what I think. We'll keep an eye on that as the season goes on, because that's something I have not found has really stood out to me. Again, poor Timothy Drake, poor June Hudson, the performer. It's like we'll have a little bit of music and we're going to tear your insides out. Welcome to Doctor Who. Yeah, Space Babies is. Well, I mean, I suppose like how do you do a story where like, Joe, let's flush all these babies out into space. Um, or even the boogie one. All right, that's something we'll put a pin in that because I'm not saying I agree, and I'm not saying I disagree. I'm saying we might revisit this.
I mean, I would suggest to you, if you're trying to figure out I would suggest watching one of these episodes and then watching a series 3 or 4 episode.
Do you know what's really funny? You've just reminded me. I remember we're going back, probably we're back into about Stephen Moffat's time, but somebody made a video on YouTube and it was very critical of Russell T. And it was like, Russell T, everyone lives in Russell T. So it was like, even at the time, I was like, really? And they did that scene from Rose where the Autons come along, and yes, poor Clive gets it in the head, but everyone else runs away. And then they cut back to a scene of, forgive me, I'm getting the doctor wrong. I'm going to say Doctor Number 5. And the Autons basically slaughter a city. And they're like, Doctor Who has been sort of watered down as the years have gone along.
But I almost feel like it's kind of got a little bit too watered down now.
It's just funny that you reminded me there of kind of the very criticism that Russell T was getting in his first couple of seasons is now well, you've been watered down again. So we shall see. Hopefully there will be a nice massacre for you next week.
Well, it's not even that, but I think when people heard that Russell T Davies was coming back, they expect it to be like his first era as showrunner to a degree. And so when you watch those episodes and you go, oh, this is what needs to come back. And now I'm watching them and I'm like, how is it the same showrunner, the same writer for most of these episodes? And it still doesn't have that same feeling. And I was like, is it because I watched it as a kid? Is it because I have that? But then I spoke to my mum about it and she was like, I don't think so, because we watched the 3 episodes with the Saxon Master. I got goosebumps in moments of that episode. And I haven't watched any of these episodes and sat there and gone, oh my God, I've got goosebumps at this moment yet. But I'm getting them quite regularly watching these. I was going to say older episodes, but the older New Who episodes, I'm confusing myself. Yeah. But I think maybe that's what it is. It's kind of the intensity of situations, not necessarily the scariness or the, brutality. I'm not saying it needs to be brutal. I just think the intensity of certain situations is not as high as it used to be.
I mean, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. But yeah, as I suppose, looking forward to next week. The fact that it looks like the pair of them standing on landmines for however long, could we have a very tense
this could be my intense episode, yes. Okay, so
looking forward to that.
Something we're going to do as these episodes go on is we're not going to give them a rating, because that always goes kind of out the window when you try to figure out how you're going to do that. But what we are going to do is we're going to do a ranking. So we're going to keep an eye on it. And as each new episode comes, we'll slowly move them up and down the scale until we get to the end of season 1, and we'll have a ranking based on our thoughts of the episodes. So the first question is, do we want to include the Church on Ruby Road on this list?
I think so.
I think we should.
Yeah.
So with those 3 episodes in mind, Sean, what ranking would you put those 3 episodes in?
Devil, Ruby Road, Space Babies.
Okay, and I would agree. So this might change throughout the weeks. We might differ in opinion. If that happens, we'll branch off and we'll have 2 separate rankings, which we'll compare at the end of the run. But for now, we've got the same ranking. So Perfect. We will, I'm hoping there's going to be a nice little scale or something on the screen right now. So at the moment, number 1, The Devil's Chord. Number 2, The Church on Ruby Road. Number 3, Space Babies. And we'll keep an eye on that. So obviously next week we have Boom, which is Stephen Moffat's episode. Stephen Moffat returns. And as we've said, then
some people will be cheering, other people will be like, no.
Yeah, as we mentioned, this one looks like it definitely could be the more intense episode of season 1. I'm very excited about this episode. I'm very intrigued. I'm a big fan of Stephen Moffat's episodes. I wonder if we're going to see a theme, because a lot of the kind of the best voted episodes in RTD1 are actually Stephen Moffat's episodes. So are we going to see another theme here where the best episode of season 1 is going to also be Stephen Moffat's episode? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really intrigued. I love just flicking through a quick interview with him that he's taken inspiration from episodes like Genesis of the Daleks. That it was about 2.5 years ago. He wrote, it boggles me sometimes, like, yeah, of course, this has been production for so long. Just feels like it's a new. Oh, I'm really excited.
Yay! Yay for more Doctor Who!
Yay!
And we will see you all next week when we discuss Boom.
Woo! Keeping it wibbly wobbly.
Bye!